Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this August 16th, 2017 day in our calendar. It's Thursday, and today, what's most cherished in your life? If you go through life, what in America was promised to you? Well, not promised, but you'd expect that you would be able to buy a house, then you would be able to pay for it, and live the American dream, so to speak. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about a mess that nobody talks about. Nobody, especially in the housing industry and the real estate industry. And it goes uncovered by the alternative media, by the mainstream media, but not by me. And it's called the foreclosure mess. It's even worse in states that are called non-judicial states. And so I'm going to get a little technical, and you're going to have to figure out first what's a non-judicial state and a judicial state. Because if you want to keep your home and you fall behind in a mortgage these days, you don't go to your local banker, "Hey Fred, I've run across hard times, and I'll take care of it." And Fred looks at you and says, "Don't worry, John. Everybody in the community loves you." Folks, that doesn't exist in America anymore. And when we went through the mortgage crisis in 2008, everybody thinks it's over, but it's not. It goes on today. And if you get in trouble, you will lose your house and these bankers will rip you off. And guess what? The judicial system in it's about 23 states, there's like 50, right? Half and half. Let's just go half and half. They're called non-judicial and judicial states when it comes to foreclosure. So, if you're in a judicial state, you're better off, which means that if you miss a few payments, the lender has to file a lawsuit to get your home back. So then you can defend yourself. But in non-judicial states, such as the two biggest violators of these laws, the lender laws, and the banking people who are doing it are in California and Texas. Now, 1 in 5 homeowners live in California. I don't think people understand that. This state is like the 6th biggest economy in the world. And what is going on here is a mess. It's a total mess. And people are losing their homes without the right to defend themselves by the laws that are even written by the legislators. And guess what? The Attorney General is not filing any criminal violations against these lenders who file bogus documents, because that's what the California laws say. So let me get into this very deeply, and hopefully it may save one person's home. I'm going to say very simply, check out first if you're in a judicial or non-judicial state. Now you can do that by Googling and just put foreclosure, judicial, non-judicial state, and you'll find out. Now, in 23 states, before a lender can foreclose on a homeowner for defaulting on a mortgage, it must take the homeowner to court. That's a judicial state. As we've seen, even judicial review, that process, has still been shot through with problems, big problems. But for a troubled homeowner in California, Texas, and 25 other non-judicial states, we're going to call it robot signings. They're violating the law. And most people don't care about these things. I find really simply, I filed 2 or 3 lawsuits for people. And they just are not, they have to realize just because you lose your job and you can't pay for your house for 2 or 3 months doesn't mean you're a deadbeat. Doesn't mean you're going to lose your home. There are rights. But people don't realize that anymore. They don't think they have any rights. But you do. So, for example, these in California, there's so many, and Texas, let's just center on those states. Because it goes on in the 25 others. But most people, like I said, 1 in 5 homeowners live in California. The scandal is even a mess, even more dangerous, because the lender in these states doesn't have to go to court to foreclose. Isn't that interesting? Now, I would say that if I was a congressman, I would want my people to have the lender go to court to prove to be foreclosed. But you think the congressmen in these states are doing that? No, because they're in bed with the lenders. But here's what happens. So you live in California, Texas, or one of the other states, 25 others that total 25. 25 plus California and Texas plus the 23 non-judicial equals 50, right? Now, fraudulent paperwork can be used with impunity, folks, unless the homeowner is in bankruptcy. So I'm going to give you a little tip. If you get foreclosed on, file a Chapter 7 or 13 bankruptcy. Then they're going to have to go to court and prove all the stuff. And if you think it's going to ruin your credit, it won't, because in 7 or 8 years, you can just reestablish it. And during those years, you're a good credit risk because you can't file for another 7 or 8 years. So listen to what I'm telling you. If you get foreclosure papers, file a bankruptcy. If you don't know how to do it, call me and I'll help you. Because I do this with a number of people in California because I got tired of seeing people lose their homes. And so I started researching it because, yes, I know the law a bit. And we can help you. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Now, fraudulent paperwork can be used, like I said, with impunity if you're in, especially a non-judicial state like California and Texas. So the bankruptcy is key. That'll stop any foreclosure, which is a judicial process. They got to then prove things. Or unless the homeowner is represented in a foreclosure. Now, you got to find out who you want to represent you, because even attorneys don't understand these little technical things that go on. And if they don't know what to look for, banks and these big lenders like Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all these people are getting away with stealing your property, and they've been doing it ever since that mortgage crisis in 2008. They're greedy. They're greedy, money hungry people that want your property, and they'll do anything. And I'm going to explain to you again. Similarly, now, solving the problem in these non-judicial states. Now, they call it a deed of trust in these states. Now, in a judicial state, it's called a mortgage loan. But really, let's just say they're one and the same. They just use different terms. Now, simple solutions have been worked out, but nobody in none of the attorney generals will do that because they're in bed with the big lenders. Now, there are, on the books, there's criminal prosecutions can be brought against any people who file fraudulent documents, but nobody does. The California Attorney General doesn't do it. In California, for example, it's illegal to file a fraudulent document. Now, when I go over a mortgage case, I find that most of the documents are fraudulent. And I can find it in many different ways if you know what you're looking for. Now, but you don't need to hold your breath to see if criminal prosecutions are going to come. Meanwhile, homeowners in non-judicial states, remember those words, non-judicial, face a real perilous situation. And people in LA, I remember, were basically protesting with signs, stop the greed, stop taking our homes. And it's just really amazing that these people get away with it. So let's look at the California foreclosure law simply for you. And what I'll do is say that most of the other states follow suit. We'll do that in a second. Okay, I'm working with a lady right now in San Francisco. I'm not going to get into her case because it's confidential. But I'm helping her to get out of a mess that's the most unbelievable foreclosure mess I've ever seen. And the reason I like this is because I want people to be in their homes, live in their homes, not be constantly in fear of these lenders who you don't even know who they are. They assign loans, they transfer loans. You take out a loan in 2000 and let's say 4. By 2006, they've transferred it to somebody else, and they're making money off that, but you know nothing about it. And in non-judicial states, and in everywhere, you don't know anything because they don't even have to go to court to show what they've been doing, changing trustees, doing all this stuff. It's just insane. And people are losing their homes. And this is a conspiracy that is deeper than many that we talk about because that takes away the American dream of a home. It isn't like you can go to Charlie or Lender anymore. I'm not going to get into the woman in San Francisco because I'm in the middle of writing a complaint for her. She's going to go in pro per because she doesn't want to pay any more money for high-priced lawyers that don't know anything about this, and many of them don't. There are a few that do. And if you really need one, I can refer you to one or two, and they're not closely connected to me, and I get no money out of it. But here's what I want to say. In California, the basic foreclosure process, now other states have maybe little different things, and we can go through each one. You can contact me, and we can go through it. But in California, the basic foreclosure process runs very similar to this, just simply like this. It's easy. A lender who has a loan, okay, that is 90 days plus in default. So you haven't paid your mortgage in 90 days. You lost your job. Maybe somebody died in your family and you're behind. Maybe your mortgage, there's so many different scenarios. So you're in default. What happens, these lenders, you don't even know who they are at times anymore. You took out a loan with ABC and now it's with CBS. You don't know. A lender who has a loan that is 90 days in default will contact the homeowner to explore options that the borrower has to avoid foreclosure. Now, what they'll do is many times they'll say we need to get into a loan modification. But at the same time they're doing the loan modification, which is a fraudulent act, they're just saying this, they're actually filing the default notice, first notice of default. This is illegal. Once contact has been made, or the lender has tried hard enough but failed to make contact, but they don't. See, there have been so many foreclosures, so many people have been hit by hard times in America that the lenders don't even want to pay people to work for them, the banks, to contact you personally. So, you may contact them, they give you the runaround, but they don't. So, the statutory foreclosure starts ticking once contact has been made. But in many cases, there's never any contact, really. And that is the key. It's under California Civil Code Statute 2923.5. This you can get out of, you can beat these people. Now, assuming no modification is worked out, and a loan modification means, okay, you can't pay this, let's pay this. Then they give you 3 months to, it's a test. Can you do that? But what I found out is that they don't do that. They don't want you to have a loan modification. They give you a runaround. The servicing company of the lenders, see, you got 3 tiers you're working with here. You're not working with John and the bank. You're working with a servicing company, then you're working with the trustee, who could be some bank who has a trustee you don't even know. Then you got the lender. You don't even know who owns the loan and what the loan is today. So here's what's happening. They run you around the corner and they make it, I've seen so many times people filing modifications and then they're getting defaulted at the same time. That's illegal. These people should be in jail, but do you think the Attorney General is going to do that? Now, what has to happen, what I've seen happen a lot, is that right before a person, let's say a person is 3 months behind, they'll begin to transfer the loan and change the trustee. Then, what happens? Then the trustee then goes to the land records office and has to record a notice of default and a declaration that the bank reached out to the homeowner but failed to foreclose. Now, the lender has to send a copy of the notice to the homeowner, which tells the homeowner how much she must pay to get out of default and who to contact to pay that amount. The homeowner then has 3 months to cure the default. It gets complicated here, but here's what usually happens. They don't give you that time. They're automatically filing papers to get you out. All of a sudden, you find that my home has now got a notice for sale in 20 days. Oh, yeah. But I found many times that the trustee does not, when she records or he records that assignment, they have no idea who even has the loan. And secondly, they file a robo-signing saying it's very simple. We have contacted the buyer and the owner, and they have not contacted us. And let me get to that in a second, because that goes on for many, many hundreds of thousands of cases. And that is against the law. You cannot be that general. Now here's what happens. There's an attorney in California that I spoke with who has over 20 years of experience with this, and he says this. He says, in recent years, the foreclosure process has become tainted in several ways. The first issue is unique to California. The declarations that are filed claiming the homeowner was contacted to try to avoid foreclosure have become meaningless by the law. Now remember, 1 in 5 people who own homes in this country live here. And they say this, and I've seen it on most every assignment that I look at. The undersigned declares that the beneficiary of its authorized agent has declared they have complied with California law. That section, they don't even give the section, 2923.5, by making contact with the borrower or tried with due diligence to contact the borrower as requested by California law. Translation: somebody talked to the homeowners and couldn't work out anything, or maybe didn't talk to them but tried. We don't know who called or when, but really we're sure somebody did what they were supposed to do. This is meaningless filing. It is a robo-filing against the law. It will help you get out of your foreclosure and get you time and get your house back, perhaps without any of the back payments. Yes. Now, the meaningless filing, that language doesn't mean the homeowner was really called, does it? Much less. And I found out that most of them aren't, because most times homeowners are calling and they get the runaround. much less than the bank tried in any way to avoid foreclosure. Duh. They want foreclosures because to get out of their financial mess, the more money they can make on your house, the better. Right? And you lose all your equity. Now, this reflects the volume of foreclosures and the bank's unwillingness to staff up to do the foreclosures well. They don't want to, folks. They want to take your homes. Two primary reasons for these robo-signings. And if you really check it out, like the attorney I talked to, he found that one guy was signing thousands of these things. He could not have contacted the owners. Like robo-signings.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this thing just can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, glad you're back in the second half hour. And in this half hour, I'm going to synthesize down what's really important, especially if you're losing your home. You have to find the right person, the right lawyer or non-lawyer that understands what's going on in the state that you live in. Now, I specialize, well, I wouldn't say specialize, but I like doing it because it's hard work for me. Doing a mortgage case like this, a foreclosure case, I've done a number of them, to me is like heavy lifting. It's not my favorite thing to do. I love doing other things in the law. There are many lawsuits. In fact, I just finished one helping a woman who took birth control pills thinking she was going to not get pregnant. And guess what? The pharmaceutical company screwed up and she's pregnant. And so that lawsuit to me was like dream heaven. I was loving doing it. When I do a foreclosure lawsuit, it's worse than going to the dentist. And I always have to remind myself. And when I say doing the lawsuit, I'm saying I'm writing a complaint, helping someone who can't afford an attorney. And the point is, people that are in foreclosure, they don't have any money. So how can they get a high-priced attorney? And many times, these high-priced attorneys don't understand this law anyway. And I know a couple that do, so if I can't handle it, I contact them and say, hey, after I file the improper lawsuit, which they can do, they're filing it. They read it. I'm not giving them, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a legal consultant giving them advice, and I say, this is what you need to do if you choose to, and go ahead. Now, is that the practice of law? No. Should it be? Yes. I've always felt the Bar Association is a fraud. For example, these people, I've talked to I remember I was doing a case helping somebody who was in Boston to save her home, okay? And in Boston, there's a particular thing you do in this jurisdiction there where they give you, Boston is cool, they give you the forms to file to block the foreclosure. I loved it. And so we did that. And one of the people that I work with got contacted by the young attorney from Harvard or somewhere. And she said, what are you guys doing? Well, nothing. We just helped this lady file a lawsuit. Well, we're at war now. And my friend, who doesn't understand the law as much as I do, and he's a young guy who wants to become a Mexican lawyer, I told him, I said, that's the first sign of an inexperienced person. You never do that to anyone. The first sign of an experienced legal consultant or lawyer is always to remain cool and calm and to keep your bullets in your holster until court. So I knew we were up against fools. And this woman will keep her house because we did help her. But anyway, another story. People are probably wondering why I'm saying this. I sporadically do these things and decided after, it was about 2 or 3 months ago when when I decided I really needed to find something more to do in life, I got back into it, and I decided that I would study this area of the law because I felt that too many people were losing their homes. And I'm right. So now, after 2 or 3 months of study, I can tell you that whatever state you live in, I can help you at least understand what you're under. I can't give you legal advice per se, Otherwise, the gendarmes will come and say, he's practicing law without a license. As if these guys that have a license are practicing law. They're practicing not how to they're all crooks. Most of the big lawyers, I'm not going to just say most of them. I'm saying, look, we know the game. I know it better than anyone. But here's the deal. When we're talking about foreclosures, let's get back to the point. It's a great area. It's boring. It's like pulling teeth doing these suits because you got to check every little nook and cranny in the assignment of deed. Then you've got all these now, which is really, years ago, I never wanted to do this, and I'm explaining it to you from a simple point of view. Because there was no internet, so you had to go down to the county recorder of records. But yet, you could pay somebody if you worked at a law firm, and you got the real truth. But now there's a couple of internet sites. There's only one that I found that you can get everything that you need. But I'm not too convinced that's what you have to do. So in case you are living in a rural area or something, you got to check the county and get the track of your deed from the beginning to the end. Everything that was filed. That's the key. And you can do it if you're a homeowner. And that's what your obligation is if you're up against the wall. So don't worry about it. It's there. And if they didn't file it, you get your house back. It's that simple. But here's the deal. I wanted to give you something. In law, one of the mysteries of filing complaints that judges and lawyers and people like me understand is that you always are using legal research, and you find things, and you find lawyers that have worked on the same cases, and you take from them and you add to them and you create your own. And so what I found in one of the cases that I helped somebody work with was an introduction years ago. Well, not that many years ago, but during the foreclosure crisis that I worked on. And we created this introduction for certain lawsuits that are going on because it really gets the judge interested. So listen to what I'm going to say. It's legal, but it's not legal jargon. It's very interesting if you want to save your home. And how many people out there are in this mess, or even want to buy a home and then get into it? In America, it's ridiculous. They want to take your property away. They don't want you to have it. You give your, then how much equity do you have? That's the key. But anyway, here's a sample of what I'm talking about. An action in a lawsuit, or maybe this action, arises out of the worst. I'm talking about mortgage foreclosures since 2006, 7, 8, up until today. Financial crisis since the Great Depression. The implosion of the real estate market and foreclosure crisis, especially in states like California and Texas, are the center of this crisis, causing many people, such as maybe you will be the plaintiff in this action, to go through unnecessary foreclosure proceedings. This crisis has created a frenzy among big banks and lenders, such as maybe the defendants in your case, causing them to foreclose on as many people as possible in order to recoup losses. It has recently come to public attention, but who's listening, that in their zeal to foreclose, many big banks and lenders, like maybe the defendants in your case, have been acting outside the law in their foreclosure practices. Sometime in November 2010, the California Attorney General sent a cease and desist order to Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, a number of others, and other big lenders demanding it halt foreclosures in California unless it could establish it was complying with California Civil Code. And I've dealt with this one, 2923.5, which defendants, maybe in your case, have violated on a number of occasions. And the facts to follow in this, the complaint that we will file will bear this out. Then in October 2010, listen to this. The California Democratic Congressional Delegation wrote a letter to Eric Holder, then United States Attorney General, then Ben S. Bernanke, Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, and John Walsh, Acting Comptroller of the Office of the Comptroller, urging them to investigate possible violations of the law by financial institutions in their handling of mortgages, mortgage modifications, and foreclosures. The letter was supported by many California case studies, several of which describe scenarios that were similar to wrongful conduct inflicted by maybe the case that you're going to file. The evidence is overwhelming that these banks, these lenders, and others, mortgage service companies, etc., have been acting outside of the law since this crisis has begun. This action goes on today, and it's a prime example of how the defendants in maybe your action and their agents acted outside the course and scope of the law in their greed for property and fees without any regard of the legal rights of the homeowners, and including maybe you, the future plaintiff, or maybe you're sitting there wondering, how can I get my house back? But it's not a situation that you should worry about, because you got to find the right people to do it. And this crisis is getting worse. It's not ended. I've seen more people getting evicted, especially in Los Angeles. It's at a higher rate than I've ever seen. Evictions. People getting foreclosure evictions. Then, once you get foreclosed on, then you're going to get evicted. And you go through that process of, how did I lose my home, honey? Well, you didn't have to. You didn't have to, because the laws are there, but they're not enforcing it. They are what I just read you is window dressing. It's for a judge to read. But these people that I mentioned, they don't care. They just say that to make it seem like they're doing something. But nothing is happening. The wrongful foreclosures have increased, and they're getting worse. The robo-signings, the contacts, all of the stupid people you got to deal with when you're dealing with you don't even know who you're dealing with. They got loan servicing agents who don't know anything. They push you to here. I've even found a case where they lost the mortgage for 5 years. And now they're foreclosing on somebody. And the person wanted to pay. They didn't know who to give it to. And now they're foreclosing on her. I mean, that's what happens when you have a few big conglomerates trying to control everybody. But anyway, I wanted to get into the specifics about proving, everything's about proving their right to foreclose on you. Now, remember we talked about how they have to notify you, and they do this, and they have to record that at the county recorder, but they put this robo thing in, like, we contacted them, but they didn't do this, but there was nothing personal. That's against the law. Right there, we can get a judge who's honest, which is not easy to find, to say, hey, that's not fair, guys. But I've even seen judges overlook that because they're paid to overlook it. Now, second thing, the document mess that I'm talking about in foreclosure shows up during the cure period, those 90 days. And it's classic robo-signing document fraud. In the mess, the deed of trust for any given home may have changed hands, and I find this happening multiple times. But typically, none of those transactions were recorded properly in the land records. As a result, when the bank that claims to have the right to foreclose decides to do so, the land records almost never show it owning the deed of trust, and thus the bank lacks the right to foreclose. If that problem isn't fixed, a completed foreclosure could be successfully challenged and undone. So what I'm getting at, if you don't check this stuff, they will, since they don't have to go to court, you're not ever, they'll get your house illegally. And it's been done hundreds, thousands of times. That's why I say, remember, foreclosure, file bankruptcy. Do it. Then they got to go to court and all the stuff will be flushed out, hopefully. Now, enters the fraudulent documents. This is great. During the cure period, remember this, you get time. You're supposed to, by law, get time to cure your foreclosure. The bank records an assignment of deed of trust that gives it the right to foreclose, right? Sometimes a substitution of trustee, a recorded, those are recorded too, replacing the original trustee, traditionally a neutral third party, but that doesn't exist anymore, with a trustee that vows, typically a subsidiary of the foreclosing bank, or it could be one of the foreclosing players. So what's happening here, they don't have a third-party trustee anymore that's independent. They hire some fraudulent third-party trustee. That change is just another way foreclosing entities try to capture every last trickle of stream of fees that flow from foreclosures. Just as the assignments of mortgage filed in judicial states are routinely robo-signed, remember judicial states, got to go to court, and otherwise flawed, these are assignments of the deeds of trust and substitutions of trustees are often fraudulent. In fact, in the experience of the attorney I talk to, who I rely on sometimes, less than 5% of these documents are correct. This, he told me, it's not about sloppiness or cutting corners. It's about a complete disregard for the due diligence and accountability for one's actions on both a personal and corporate level. There's no scrutiny. And unlike most judicial states, those are ones where lenders have to go to court. The non-judicial states, no one looks at these assignments. No one. Although they are publicly recorded. They aren't sent to the debtor, not presented to a judge. Even if the debtor is represented by counsel, the attorney would be unlikely to review the land records and spot the problem because most of them lack the special training. Most lawyers don't know what to look for. The only times they can pass the bar exam, but they don't know what to look for in these cases, most of them. The only times these documents are scrutinized and possibly exposed are during bankruptcy, like I mentioned, so file it. When a judge looks at them, and usually the debtor has an attorney, in rarer cases, the debtor has a foreclosure defense counsel that knows how to spot the problem. Now, if you find somebody that knows what to look for, what does he see? Well, he sees robo-signings. One common name that you could see. You see one guy spotted signing thousands of these documents, signing the name of MERS. You got to know what MERS is, Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems. He also, the attorney might see defunct entities such as Lehman Brothers or Bank of America rising from the corporate, or another company rising from the corporate grave to assign deeds of trust. In a variation of that theme, He might also see assignments where the original, now defunct Quick lender's name is changed slightly. For example, he might see an assignment by Quicken Loan Funding when the real originator is Quicken Loan Funding when the original is Quick Loan Funding. Finally, a relatively recent fraudulent innovation is filing the assignment after the foreclosure sale has occurred, meaning the foreclosing bank has sold the house. It didn't legally have the right to own anyway. Other kinds of, improper practices predate this current foreclosure mess, but they exasperate it. For example, the amount of money the debtor has to pay to cure the loan, which is stated in notice of default, is usually inflated. So they're catching you on both ends. And that will carry over, and you are going to have to deal with that as a lien. And, the extra fees make foreclosure more likely since they make curing the default even harder. The extra fees they add on that are illegal, so you got to start looking there. A study published in Texas, which looked at foreclosures in non-judicial states that were brought before a judge in a bankruptcy case, found illegal and improper fees rampant, plus myriad of other problems again. In the typical non-judicial foreclosure, the wrongful nature of these fees would never be explained unless you go to court. So not only are they foreclosing on you, they're adding fees they don't deserve, so you can never ever get your property back. Now, the real reason that I did this show, and the real reason I want you to know I did this show, not was to exemplify my legal knowledge on this issue, but it's to show you the mess that we've gotten into in this country regarding our homes, our life, even what we do with our money. We give it to these people, and then they just use it, and then they take it and turn it around on us. The old system of a local banker knowing you, trusting you, you trusting him through good times and bad times is gone. That's what America's about. That's what we need to get back to. We cannot allow these huge companies, these huge profit-bearing companies, to steal your land after you've paid for it. And they feel as if they own you. And as I said, the only way you're going to fight these people is not through conspiracy theories. If you want to own a home, we're going to have to bring down prices of homes because most people can't afford them anymore unless you move to the boondocks. But if you want to keep your home, you're going to have to fight tooth and nail against these crooks. And I hope some of the information that I give you can help you do that. If you want to contact me about it, talk about it, it's very simple. Greg Beacon, GregBeacon, @gmail.com. And I'd be more than happy to do it. Because the most important thing in life is to have a nice place to live. Not a roof over your head that you can't afford to pay for, and then you're always worried every day the bank's going to take it. It's yours, and you're going to keep it. And I enjoy helping people do that with the limited information that I have. Hopefully this show will help you. See you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded It has been borrowed. It has been purchased. It has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.